Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the city's first entirely youth-led mayoral debate. Thank you for joining us. This is a wonderful example of youth-led social change and civic engagement that is truly the first of its kind in the city. I won't speak for too long because I want us to get to the main event, but I wanted to take a moment to put the evening into a broader context and help paint a picture of why it's so important that we are all here. For the first time in over a decade, this city will have a new leader. The choice of who should fill that important role is an extremely important one. Young people, in particular, have a lot at stake in this election. The world looks really different for them now than it did when Mayor Bloomberg first took office. More teens are graduating from high school, but too many are not finishing college. Fewer teens are having babies than 10 years ago, but there's been no improvement in the rate of teens suffering from life-altering STDs. Youth poverty, youth homelessness, youth unemployment, and rates of stop and frisk are all higher now than they were 10 years ago. There are real challenges facing our youth every day. What the next 10 years looks like depends largely on how we engage young people in this moment. It may be trite to say that the youth are our future, but it is nevertheless true. The young people and voters in our schools and in the audience today will be our city's educators, urban planners, architects, city council people, advocates, doctors, parents, and mayoral candidates before we know it. We must prepare them to become the leaders that this city needs. And that preparation begins with listening to them today. Their experience in school, on the trains, in our public spaces and our parks, looking for employment and trying to pay for college can give us critical insight into how to make our city stronger. We will develop better solutions to our problems if we work with young people, if we truly listen to them, not as sound bites or testimonials, but as partners in building our city's infrastructure and shaping our collective future. Today's event is a shining example of that process of engagement and partnership at work. Thank you all for being part of it.
Pass that down again.
With that, I want to welcome Deasia Robinson, one of the youth planners of tonight's debate.
Hi, my name is Deasia Robinson, and thank you all so much for being here. As Brooke said, I'm a member of the planning committee that has been working so hard for this first ever youth-led mayoral debate in the history of New York City politics. I and 25 other young people have been meeting once a week for the past 2.5 months to make this debate happen. The members of both the planning and mobilization committees are here. If you helped to make this forum happen, please stand up. We represent the face of New York City. We come from all 5 boroughs and are passionate about issues ranging from improving our schools to increasing the number of beds available to homeless young people in New York City. The members of our group have all been personally impacted by the topics we will be discussing today. Our lives have been touched by the criminal justice system, homelessness, immigration, and the education system. We volunteered to be part of this project because we believe in giving back to our communities and because we know that the voices of the 550,000 young people in this city do make a difference. I would like to now introduce the candidates and the moderators for today's debate. The candidates who are here with us today are Mr. Randy Credico, Reverend Eric Salgado, Mr. Adolfo Carrion, Mr. Sal Albanese, and Mr. John Katzimatidis. Our moderators today are Aza Awad, age 17 from Brooklyn, Levi Ornstein Wolf, age 15 from Manhattan, Shakai Wright, age 18 from Brooklyn, Samuel Pugo, who turned 15 today from the Bronx. And Meredith Peng, age 17 from Staten Island. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy this historic event. I thank you.
Good evening. We have asked each candidate to provide a 2-minute opening statement. After the opening statement, there will be 5 moderated questions that will be asked, which was generated by the committee and by young people who have submitted questions onto our website. After the questions, they will have a closing statement of 2 minutes. Candidates, please save your rebuttals for your closing statements. We will first start off with Mr. John Casamatino, who will open us up for statements.
Italian.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me here. My problem is I can't stay long, but I wanted to come and give you the respect of being here. I came to America as an immigrant. I was 6 months old, and I grew up in a very poor neighborhood on 135th Street. And I became a success and part of what makes America great. I went to public schools. I went to PS 192, and I went to Brooklyn Tech High School. And I'm one of the ones that helped raise $10 million for Brooklyn Tech as a foundation to make sure that future generations of Brooklyn Tech graduates have the laboratories and computers that they need. I've made a lot of money. I've been very successful. I made one of the top businessmen in the country. And I want to give back. And that's the reason I'm running. I don't need the money going in. I don't need the money going out. I'm not a professional politician. I just want to do a good job or a great job for New York City and its citizens and to give back to New York for what they gave me. Gave me great success, great family, and great children, and it's time for successful people to give back to the city. Thank you very much.
Okay, now you can hear me. Now you can hear me. I'm a preacher, so I know. Believe me, I work with the mic all the time. My name is Reverend Eddie Salgado. I'm glad, I'm honored to be here sharing my vision of New York City with all the students over here. I want to congratulate you first for having the courage to put things like that together. When I was a student myself, I was trying to do other things, but I want to congratulate you because every time the media is always looking for what is wrong with our youngster, and now let's see how much media attention we get with this event putting in place. I'm running for mayor because I have served New York City for the last 24 years. I was born in the Bronx, raised in Puerto Rico, and I came back to New York City when I was 17 on my own. My father came from the island of Puerto Rico in 1926. He passed away last week. And he taught me that I had to keep focused and I had to believe that I could do what I am meant to do. I opened a chain of bookstore in Brooklyn together with my spouse Sonia. We was able to grow it up and employ a lot of people. Then in 2003, we opened a small radio program that we was able to increase into a chain of station. And right now it's the biggest Spanish evangelical network. I am running because I have been serving the most vulnerable one in New York City. I remember when I was helping the Sandy victim in the area of Brooklyn, especially in Coney Island, Brighton Beach, Red Hook, and many other places. I heard that Mayor Bloomberg want to close the bridge, the Verrazano Bridge where I live, and he would disconnect. I got an extra minute. He would disconnect more than 500,000 New Yorkers that live in Staten Island and that they rely on that bridge. Then I knew there was a disconnection between the current administration and the career politician that belong to the current administration that are seeking for this office. Therefore, I'm running because that's what I do best, help people. And if I become mayor, I'm going to be able to help all New Yorkers in a different level. Thank you so much.
Thank you
So much, and good evening, everyone. It's great to be here, and when I see this crowd, it makes me optimistic about the future. So I want to commend all of you for all your efforts. My name is Sal Albanese. I'm someone who has a strong record of independence. I am not accepting contributions from developers or lobbyists or anyone who does business with the City of New York, and I'm committed to putting the people in charge of City Hall. Let me just give you a little synopsis of my background. I came here as an immigrant at the age of 8. I grew up in a working class neighborhood in Brooklyn where my mother raised us on a garment worker's salary. The public schools, the libraries, the sports program, this CUNY system, all services that the city offered helped to elevate my family from the working class to the middle class. I'm running for mayor because I want to offer the same opportunities to future generations of New Yorkers, and I'm worried the political class is letting them slip away. With your help, I think we can change that. I spent 11 years as a New York City public school teacher, so I understand education from the ground up. I also spent 15 years on the city council and had a strong record of reform. I authored the city's first living wage law, which impacted 70,000 people and put $3 billion in their pockets. And the last 15 years I've spent in the private sector. We have to improve our education system. We have to tackle poverty, income inequality. We have to fix our schools, and I plan on doing that. But before we do any of that, we need a government that works for its citizens. Right now, we have an out-of-touch political class that spends more time at cocktail parties than listening to their constituents. We need to make serious changes. I want to be a different kind of mayor. I want to be a mayor that makes decisions on the merits, that tells the truth, even if it's politically risky, and I want to give regular New Yorkers a voice in City Hall. So with your help and with your votes, we can build a better city. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Adolfo Carrion. I first want to congratulate Brooke for the effort. I shared with Brooke earlier that I saw her and the two young ladies who were absolutely great on New York One a few days ago. And that's what inspired me even more to be here, because I said, you know, these guys are sort of taking ownership, taking the reins of their future. This is really what it's all about. I grew up in New York City. My parents came here from Puerto Rico in the 1950s. From the mid-50s to 1969, we went from poverty to the middle class and to home ownership in the North Bronx. So we started on South 2nd Street in Williamsburg. We moved to Alphabet City in the Lower East Side. I went back to the Lower East Side the other day. I didn't recognize my old block. It was a completely different place, but it shows the power and the possibility that exists in this city of transformation and people taking ownership of their future. And I grew up as a teen in the 1970s, went to middle school and high school in the Bronx, and rode the subways and went to Times Square, and I saw the reality that we lived and how difficult this city was for young people and for families. And I really want to make sure that we keep moving in the direction that we've been moving it in, but we can do so much better. We have to make sure that at the end of the day, we prepare a citizenry that owns this franchise and owns this city and owns this country. And right now, there is a real crisis here, and I'm going to end very quickly. In 2009, 3 of every 10 voters came out to vote. 70% of the registered voters stayed home. Less than 1.2 million people. You know what? We run the danger of being in the same place in 2013. That's a sad state of affairs. Our hope is the young people. Our hope is the ability for us to wake this generation up. I'm running for mayor to wake this generation up.
I told him I'd give him 30 seconds of my time. At any rate, hi, my name is Randy Credico, and thank you for inviting me here today. I am actually from Southern California. I've been in New York City for 30 years. I was a political satirist for most of my life. In 1997, I changed gears and became the leader of the William
Moses Kunstler Fund for Racial Justice. Our organization fought against the racist criminal justice system in the state of New York, most specifically the Rockefeller drug laws. I organized families of those who spend 20, 30 years in prison for minor drug offenses, 94% Black and Latino. We were inspired by the Madres de Plaza de Mayo in Argentina, who I spent last night with at the UN. These women are the bravest women on the planet. Their kids were activists like you folks here. They were murdered by the military government that the US supported. And because of their inspiration, women here became inspired and we changed those laws. Not enough, but those laws changed. I have been an active opponent of stop and frisk. I've been involved since 1997 when Rudy Giuliani first put it into effect. You talk about the last 12 years under Bloomberg. Well, it's the last 20 years. We've had a 20-year nightmare of racism in this city on every level. If you take a look at how many people are thrown into the criminal justice system, that's who I speak for. I'm not going to win this race because I speak for people who can't vote. I speak for the people in Rikers Island, the 10,000 people out there. I speak for the people who are in the pipeline in the criminal justice system. I've spent a lot of time in every courthouse in this city, and what it's really like is like a slave auction block. We've recreated slavery. We have 3 million people in prison in this country. 3 million, 25% of the world's prison population. It's not being addressed by any of the candidates. Oh, I have so much more to say, but thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. It's great to see everybody out here, and I think it's just, it's so wonderful to see young people getting involved. My name is John Liu. I've had the privilege of serving as city controller now in my 4th year. Not an easy time to be chief financial officer of anything, but I start every morning having the excitement to serve and help lead our city in the right direction. And as the city controller, I basically manage the finances of our city. It's been a challenging time, probably the worst recession since the Great Depression. But as challenging as it has been, it's been totally rewarding. And being controller gives me the ability and the opportunity to really look into every aspect of city government. And that's the kind of experience that will allow me to cross the street from where my office is right now at the municipal building and go to City Hall if you'll have me to be mayor of this great city. A city that has always meant so much to people throughout the generations. A city that my family immigrated to when I was a kid, knowing that this was a place that if you work hard, you dream big, and then you work a little harder, you can achieve great success. But I think in recent years, it's been much more difficult. Difficult with a growing wealth gap that continues to allow the rich and powerful to do better while leaving the rest of us behind. A city that has lost opportunities for young people, something that we really have to regain if we are concerned about our future. I'm here I'm here as a candidate for mayor and still somewhat amazed about that. Because when I was growing up here, I never ever thought of running for office, let alone thinking that I would ever get elected to anything. I studied physics, mathematical physics. I spent many years in the private sector before deciding that I wanted to give something back. As far as I'm concerned, all of you are way ahead of the game because I was never involved when I was a young person like you. And the fact that you are out here tonight, it's a gorgeous night outside, but you're in here today and it speaks volumes to our democracy, and I have great hope. Thanks for being here.
We want to thank the candidates for giving their open statement. Just as a reminder, there will be 5 moderated questions, and you each have 2 minutes to give your answers. Please save your rebuttals for your closing statements. I will begin with the first question, which is about education. College readiness involves many things, such as opportunities to access internships, volunteers, and SAT prep. Schools around New York City provide different levels of opportunity and support to help students to get into college. New York City Department of Education data shows a significant disparity of SAT scores among people of different high schools. In our planning committee, for example, we have several students who attend Clara Barton's High School in Brooklyn, where the average writing score on the SAT is 413. At LaGuardia High School, where several other of our members attend, the average writing score on the SAT is 577, a big gap of 164 points. What will you do to provide access to SAT prep resources for all students, regardless of ability to pay? And we'll start off with Mr. John Lewis, who will go first.
Thank you.
John Lewis.
Yeah, Lewis, it's all right, all right? It's just not Williams. Right? No offense against any Williams in here. This is a big problem, and I think that we have a great deal of disparity, whether it be income disparity or employment disparity or even educational disparity. And these are the kinds of issues that we have to fix going forward so that we can have a city that really means, and truly means equal opportunity, which is what I talked about in my opening statement. I've got a plan that will address many of these educational inequities in our school system. First and foremost, we have to start with from the top down. We need a school system that is run less like a corporation, treating schools as individual business divisions, and run them more like a Department of Education that values learning and fosters a learning environment in each and every one of our schools. So what we need to do there, we need to stop these incessant closures of schools and provide them the resources and the support so that they can stay open and succeed. We've got to cut down on the co-locations, which I think introduce a huge amount of tension in school buildings and the surrounding communities, and don't really add to the educational choice that our kids need. And finally, we have to learn how to teach our kids more, not test them all the time. Teach our kids. And so when it comes to educational inequities, the ability or lack thereof of some families to provide the resources, whether it be preschool or pre-kindergarten or college prep. These are things that have been addressed in my people's budget. I've reviewed the city's budget from top to bottom, looking at the $70 billion annual budget, coming up with ideas for where we can raise more revenue so that we can pay for the costs that will once and for all eradicate these kinds of disparities. SAT prep classes, as well as some of the specialized high school entrance exams. Those are preparation classes that higher income families are able to afford. Meanwhile, too many of our kids are left behind because they're not afforded those same kinds of opportunities. I want to erase those gaps, and we do so by introducing or reintroducing a true learning environment in each and every one of our schools. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, you know, I think a lot of the rhetoric you're going to hear about this issue is going to be cosmetic. What we really need is a major restructuring of the system in New York City on every single level. And we have to begin by a major restructuring of the economic playing field. There has been class warfare by the rich over the poor, instituted by the last two mayors for the past 20 years. We have to reverse that. We need to, what I would do is, first of all, I would find money by cutting the police budget in half. I would bring that police force down to about 20,000 officers. We do not need that many police. Crime is really down. Right now they're searching for crime and they're being involved in this prison industrial pipeline. There's what's called a military industrial complex federally. Locally, there's the police industrial complex. But everyone's afraid. We have a police commissioner everyone is afraid of. He's like the J. Edgar Hoover on the local level, and most people won't tackle him. You know, because he does. They have the intelligence units that keep track. I was arrested 4 times at Occupy Wall Street, 2 times against stop and frisk. What's that? We're getting away from the subject. All right. So, but I'm saying that we can find money to pay for schools, all schools. You know, you go to Cuba, everyone gets educated there. Why can't we have that in New York City with all the money we have? We could put a 0.5% sales tax on Wall Street transactions. We could raise $50 or $60 billion. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to level the playing field, but we have 60% black unemployment youth right now in this city. That's got to be reversed. How do you go to school when you can't find a job? How do you concentrate? So I think we have to make major, substantial changes to our system right now. And they're, like I said, reverse to class warfare.
You know, the unfortunate reality that has developed in our country, and it is true across the entire 50 states and in just about every major urban center, is that your zip code has become determinative of your prospects for success, your health and wellness, and the possibilities for wealth creation. We are trying to build a city and a country that provides equal opportunity for everyone. Obviously, we understand that people have different levels of talent. That's the reality. But we need to level the playing field and ensure that we give the resources across the board to every child in this city, and ensure that rather than their preparation and the prospects for their future being tied to their ability to pay for special services or buy tutors or buy Saturday programs because they're in the upper incomes of our city, that we provide the tools for our kids at every income level to ensure that they can ultimately contribute to our economy. Right now, we have about 190,000 IT jobs that are available in New York City that are going unfilled because we have kids that you just described in this, you know, preparation or lack of preparation food chain that are not able to come out of the schools ready to fill information technology jobs that are the higher paying jobs, the high skilled jobs that can provide prospects for the future of our young people in our city, keep us competitive globally. So directly answering your question, we need to ensure the availability of test prep across the board. Mr. Liu raises the issue of that we're teaching to the test. That has to be dealt with. But in the meantime, we can't let our kids fall behind with the idealism that we're going to fix everything. We need to go right after what you need right now, which is the ability to perform better in test taking.
Thank you.
It's, under an Albanese administration, every single youngster in the city would have access to test prep. We would adequately fund those programs, which are essential. There should be no disparity. It's not even that expensive to do. But we got to also deal with a deeper issue here. And as someone who spent 11 years in our public schools, we're neglecting the fact that the first 3 years of a child's life are pivotal. We know now from compelling evidence that kids who grow up in poor neighborhoods have adverse childhood circumstances, come into our school buildings at 4 or 5 years old, way behind. Poverty causes stress, stress causes developmental issues, and we know that for a fact. I want to merge all of the early childhood programs under one umbrella called Department for Early Learning. And I want to create pediatric wellness centers in low-income communities around the city where parents, teachers, and doctors work together to address this. So when our kids come into our buildings, they're well prepared. I think it's political malpractice not to address it. I mean, we all agree we need universal pre-K, that we have to stop teaching to the test, we have to stop closing so many of our schools, but we're neglecting the main cause of why kids come into these buildings way behind. It's not an IQ issue, it's poverty. And we've got to address it, and there are programs to do it, and my idea is to put that into action immediately, because education will be my top priority as mayor.
I believe that New York City is not a melting pot anymore. It is a collection of different communities. Everybody is centralized in the city. If you go throughout Brooklyn or Manhattan or in the Bronx, you see different communities, Spanish, Latino, Asian Pacific. And I believe we have to create community council according to the different school district. This community council, they're going to be 50% appointed by the mayor and 50% elected by the community. That way, it is the community who's going to fight what is best for the school district. One of the things I want to do also is raise the age of dropout from 16 to 18, because in poor neighborhood like the Latino, African American, where especially that we believe in big family structure. I have 6 children myself. Eric is 20, Derek is 17, he's going to high school, to college next year. We have a problem, and the problem is that, you know, sometimes they start to behave a little bit different when they are 16, 17, and then they all of a sudden they call us and they say, well, we're having a problem with your son, and if you don't take care of it, we're gonna call the city on you, and most of the parents, they get afraid, and actually they sign for the letter to get the student out of the school. So we have to make sure that age is raised from 16 to 18, because it is where they belong in school into at least the age of 18. Also, we want to involve more the parents in the children education. Right now, the problem that we have in different community is because some community they speak different languages, and the parent, they don't have the access to communicate with the professor, and that is a huge problem. For example, in the community that I'm serving, Bensonhurst, where most of the parents, they are Spanish, so say, but they're actually from Guatemala, they speak Quiche, and the mothers, they don't have a way to communicate with their professor. We have to be sensitive. We have to understand that New York City has different culture, and we have to have a mayor who's going to be sensitive to the different culture, the different ethnic groups that we have in the city. That way we could achieve a better result in all the school districts. That is my plan for the city.
Thank you.
So I just would like to say that this next question will be, my understanding, the last question that Mr. Liu will be able to answer. Thank you so much for joining us. So we'll start with you after Samuel asks the question, and then we'll come down and have you, Mr. Salgado, answer second. Okay.
So thank you again, mayoral candidates and the youth of New York City for participating with us today. Our second question is also about education. The New York City Department of Education data shows that only 59.8% of students who entered high school in 2007 graduated in 4 years. Denise Vivar, one of the members of our committee, has this experience at her high school in Brooklyn, where many of her friends she started with in 9th grade are no longer with her in 12th grade. What will you use to increase graduation rates throughout New York City?
Well, thank you very much. You don't just increase graduation rates by addressing 9th and 10th graders. We've got to start much earlier. And it starts first and foremost with reintroducing the learning environment in each and every one of our schools. I've got a plan, as I started talking about before, that gets away from the testing and the corporate model that we have seen in our schools in recent years, and starts with what I call a cradle-to-career approach, which is that we start with the youngest kids. And I agree with Sal when he talks about the fact that we need to make sure that young kids are healthy, and you use the resources in the schools to piggyback off. But we also have to make sure that youngest kids are well educated from the earliest years, not just 4 years old, but we know that 3-year-old kids can learn, and that the only reason why not more 3-year-olds are in preschool is because many of the families can't afford to send them to private preschool because there are no public preschools. We start from a very early age. We continue to make sure that through middle school, they are afforded all the educational opportunities, particularly today with this digital divide that is leaving too many of our students behind. Our schools should be providing not only laptop computers, but full Wi-Fi access so that they can continue to get all the information from the information superhighway. And then go on through high school, make sure that there are counselors that are more readily available. Right now we've got an average of 259 students per counselor. No counselor is capable of that kind of inhuman feat to be able to effectively address the needs of 259 kids at the same time. So it's about getting them properly guided through high school, making sure that there's a counselor on top of each of these students so that they're fulfilling their requirements through high school, and then ultimately helping them get into not just any college, but the right college so that they will ultimately graduate from college. I do believe that the city's responsibility does not end at high school graduation, it ends at college graduation. And with that, I apologize that I've been going from forum to forum to forum. I need to get to another forum, but I do appreciate the great work that the young people here have put together tonight. I've got several representatives here, and they're going to be listening very carefully to the questions. Thanks so much for having me.
Dropout from our school is a problem. We have to make sure that all students remain in school into the age of 18. Once again, I want to mention there is a problem, especially among Latino. When you have a young kid living in a poor neighborhood, at the age of 16, they try to behave differently. And what the school is actually doing is telling the parent to report it to any city agency for the wrong behavior of that young student. And at the same time, when you have a big family, you are so afraid to open a case in the city because you have all the children, and the parent, they have no choice but to sign the letter and get that student out of the school. We have to make sure that it's mandatory that all students remain in school into the age of 18. And for that, we should also create more vocational school. We have other countries and other places that they have many vocational schools. If we have a student that is actually not interested in continuing college, at least we have to give them the opportunity to start high school learning a skill that is going to give them the opportunity to be productive right after high school. I also want to give incentive to the existing company to make sure that they hire students right after they graduate from college or right after they graduate from those vocational schools. That way, they have the incentive to hire them, and those students have the opportunity to get the experience that they need to be successful in life. It is very important that we work with the different community. Once again, I have to say it, because New York City changed a lot. I remember when I was studying high school over here in New York in 8th grade, and it was so different from now. Now we have different communities that you could pass almost weeks without speaking English because you are so centralized with your own people, and we have to make sure that the parents, that they also centralize their own community, they have the opportunity to actually have that interaction with the school, and we have to hire social workers that understand the different culture and the different community that they are serving. Therefore, I'm going to concentrate in make sure that every student actually graduates from high school. If you're a student, you're not interested to go to college, I wish everybody to graduate from college. At least give them the choice to have a vocational school for them to learn a skill to be productive right after they graduate from high school. That's my idea. And I also want to apologize, I have another forum right after this one, and but I'm more than honored to be over here participating. I have 6 children myself, and I understand the complaints, and believe me now, all the complaints about me and my wife is about things, how expensive, how difficult it is to actually go out and study in college. My son Eric, he just finished 2 years in medicine, and it's very difficult for him and for me as a parent as well. So we have to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to have the education that they deserve in this city. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Those numbers are shameful. We just should be doing so much better for our children as a society, and we're also misallocating funds. I mean, as I pointed out early on, early intervention, which I think is essential, will save us money, because many of our kids are coming into our school buildings and being referred to special education, which is very expensive. Many of them wind up in our criminal justice system, which is also very expensive. If we invested our resources early on, we would have additional dollars to make sure that all of our kids in junior high school and high school have adequate counselors, that class size is at an acceptable rate. I remember my own high school experience. What kept me in school was that I wanted to play varsity baseball, and in order to pass, I had to pass 3 subjects to stay on the varsity baseball team. I was not interested in school in those days, but I was motivated to go because of that program. Now, arts programs, music programs, those are all essential to our schools. We need activities that interest kids. So when kids walk into a school building, it's not about the 3 R's or just taking these tests where you're evaluated and teaching to the test. You need a holistic experience. Small class size, after-school activities, sports, music, art programs. And we can do that if we invest in our children early on. And those numbers would significantly improve because many of these kids, unfortunately, never catch up. I'm sorry, Adolfo, because I have to go to the same forum as those other two guys. I don't want them to beat me there, you know. I just want to thank you so much for hosting this forum tonight. As I said, I'm very excited about the fact we have so many young people interested in what's going on in the city, and an educated constituency is very important for good government. So please keep it up, and I look forward to working with you to build a better city. Thank you so much.
Hey, Sal, tell him I'm not going to make it. I'd rather be here.
We're going to do one more question, and then we'll wrap up.
I think this is clearly one of the areas where we have failed consistently. If you got in a time capsule and went 10 years, 12 years back to another mayoral forum, you probably hear the same stats. You go 20 years back, you hear the same stats. We've been talking education reform for decades. We have to turn this education system inside out. I used to be a 7th grade school teacher. I know about the middle school experience as a teacher. I know about early childhood as a parent. As you know, I have 4 kids that went through the public school system. The youngest is now 15. He's finishing his freshman year of high school at Bronx Science. Knock on wood, he did well. I want you to do something rather than going into a lengthy explanation. I want you to visit a website called communityschools.org. Communityschools.org is this concept that I've embraced and I want to advance in New York City that creates, that shifts the school to be sort of the town hall and the center of activity in the neighborhood. Because we've done this hyper testing of charter schools, which are showing some results. We experimented with magnet schools, which are showing some innovation and results because we were able to force a different relationship with the teachers and the union and the parents were brought in, and the principal was given a little more authority and flexibility to create a much more robust learning environment. But I think we can do better because that only touches 3% of the kids in New York City, unfortunately. And I believe that what we need to do is ensure that every single school in New York City is a world-class school that's preparing the citizens of the future and preparing the workforce of the future. Because at the end of the day, we need to ensure that the young people are able to become the owners of this franchise, but also become the people who push our economy forward and keep us competitive globally. But let me just say, since all the other candidates left and we have a little time on our hands, let me just close with this. The model is very simple, and that's why I said go visit the website, because it takes a little too long to explain. But if you take the school, you make it the center of gravity, you extend the hours of engagement of this community with the school, not the classroom hours, but the level of engagement of the families with the school building, with arts and sports and culture and health services in the school and through the school. We fund a lot of services in the community. We have to bring them into the school. Visit that, and also visit carryon2013.com. And follow me on Twitter at Adolfo Carrion.
Are you going to that forum too?
No,
Yeah, all right.
right here, man.
Listen, thank you. Good man. I got to tell you, I'm really, I don't want to use the word appalled, but it is unsettling to see so many leave what I consider to be one of the best forums and debates that could have happened. It's still great, but it's really unsettling to see so many candidates give you the short shrift today. And I think you should really consider some of their answers if they're willing to leave and go to some other forum that they consider more important, a forum that you know, they're basically auditioning for Wall Street. Most of these candidates are auditioning for Wall Street. You see, they want the middle class vote. They'll talk about the middle class vote. You'll hear Chuck Schumer and the entire crew that look like them and sound like them talk about the middle class. They don't really care about the middle class. They want your vote, but they're really auditioning for Wall Street, the bankers, the real estate interests. Just take a look at everyone's everyone's donation on their websites or on the Campaign Finance Board website. Take a look at where they are getting their money, where they are bundling their money. Yes, but I would like to say, I'm going to close. Well, this is important that what I would do, once again, you have to restructure. You have to have money put into the system. You have to change the culture of trying to close down public schools, which is what Mr. Walcott has done over the past 8-9 years, or the three different chancellors that the mayor's put up. I would appoint the greatest person to be Cornel West to be the chancellor of schools in this city. And let him put together a panel to really restructure the entire system the way it was envisioned by Jedediah Peck in 1814. Look up Jedediah Peck, who under Governor Tompkins put together the modern school system. He was a great man. And that's what I would do. I would put all of our resources into restructuring our schools, and I would do it by taxing Wall Street and the real estate barons of this city.
And the last question for the night will be about criminal justice. Sarah Muslim, one of the planners of this debate, has been stopped and questioned 4 times on her way to and from her school in Jamaica, Queens. In Sarah's words, these experiences have been traumatic and have felt like a violation. Many young people have noted the parallel between being stopped and frisked on the streets to being scanned through metal detectors by uniformed officers at their schools. As the future mayor, how will you prevent Sarah's experience from continuing to happen to other minority youths in New York City?
You want me to begin? Yeah, I think this is a terrible and sad state of affairs, the way that the relationship between the police department and the young people of our city has deteriorated to the point where we have police officers that are essentially policing in a form that I call drive-by policing, which is they roll through the neighborhoods rather than walk through the neighborhoods. They drive through and sort of are looking for activity on the street rather than walking into a store and talking to a merchant, walking down the street and talking to the kids, building a relationship, something that we called community policing that made sense. And if you look at the statistics and what happened with the reduction in crime here, I know that the mayor takes a lot of oxygen out of the room to say that this is the magic bullet or the magic tool that has saved the city. In fact, if you look at the statistics, in 2001, when the mayor was first elected, our crime rate had already plummeted from incredible highs in the early 80s, where we had 2,600 murders a year. 2,600 murders a year, to several hundred by the time he became mayor. So there has not been this precipitous drop. The city is much safer in a lot of ways, and in significant ways because I've experienced it, and I grew up in the city, and I had those experiences myself growing up. What we need to do is take a tool that is a basic tool of policing, which is, and anywhere in the world, I mean, it's become this phrase that everybody is sort of, it's hot right now, which is stop and frisk. You call it something else, the police still have to have the ability and to be able to identify a dangerous situation or a set of circumstances and ask and sort of interject and say, is everything okay? Or question somebody who's acting in a dangerous way and it is potentially endangering the public or themselves. So for anybody to tell you that they're going to throw this out, it may sound nice, it may be a great applause line, but they're lying to you. Because we cannot take the police's ability to police and ensure that we're all safe. I have 4 kids, I grew up in the city, I own a home, I worry about my 3 daughters, I want my neighborhood to be safe. What I don't want is the police to drive up to my 15-year-old son, throw him up against a wall for no apparent reason other than maybe he's Hispanic or dark-skinned, and begin to question him and search him for no apparent reason. So I think this tool has been abused, like any other tool can be abused, and it needs to be fixed. And it can be fixed by beginning to restore community policing. Thank you.
Well, I guess I'm going to lie to you then. I would get rid of it immediately because, first of all, there's a thing called the Constitution. There's a Fourth Amendment. It's not legal. It's not legal to stop and frisk anybody. And the city is not safer for tens of thousands of black and Latino kids in this city because of the NYPD. It is not safe. It's not safe for people like Malcolm Ferguson. It's not safe for people like Sean Bell. It's not safe for Amadou Diallo. And 212 people have been killed by the NYPD since the death of Amadou Diallo. This is an over-aggressive police force. They come in from the outer boroughs. They're white, they're on steroids, and they're set to prey. You know this. They are, many of them are, especially the undercover ones. I know this. This is my expertise. I've spent a lot of time in the courtrooms. I've spent a lot of time in the streets. I've been arrested, protesting stop and frisk at the 28th Precinct in Harlem and the 73rd Precinct and 77th Precinct in Brooklyn. So I've been out there. I've seen it. I've been in jail. I've been to the Tombs. Have you been to the Tombs? Have you been to one of the precincts? Every one of these candidates should spend time in the Tombs or the precinct or Rikers. I've been there. And I got to tell you something, stop and frisk, eliminate not just that, but the racist criminal justice system. We have a white district attorney here, a white district attorney in Brooklyn. They're all Democrats, real progressive Democrats, all right? And all the prosecutors are white, all of the judges are white, all of the police officers, these undercover cops, they're white. They get up there and they slam people into the criminal justice system at $50,000 a year. I would eliminate that. I would defund all of the various bailiwicks, the district attorneys, from making these kind of prosecutions, particularly for marijuana. Marijuana, there would be no more arrests for marijuana in this city. That would be totally ended. And stop and frisk, it would all end. And just take a look at my record. I've been arrested against just protesting to stop and frisk. And you've got to. This is something in a third world country, what they do in third world countries. Okay, how about this stop and frisk? Let's go down to Wall Street. Let's bring a bunch of black officers from Harlem and send them to Wall Street and stop and frisk them for economic crimes. That's the kind of stop and frisk I would like to see. This is, this is really going to be my closer, so I may as well just continue. We're going to have a closing statement, or should I just ramble on right now? Oh, you got a 2-minute closing statement, because this is very important, Should I just continue? You want to ask me another question? I don't know why we don't go on for a few more minutes. I mean, they've been waiting and waiting and waiting. Huh? Okay, so go ahead and ask your questions. You can keep them down to a minute apiece. All right?
Good evening. Our next question is about youth homelessness. In 2007, the Empire State Coalition's Homeless Youth Survey found that on any given night in New York City, there are 3,800 homeless youth between the ages of 13 and 25. There are only 249 beds for homeless youth in New York City. What will you do to close the gap between the needs and the resources for homeless youth?
We are at an unfortunate all-time high in the homeless population in New York City. Obviously, there is a serious issue with single adults. There is a serious issue with young people. There obviously are, families that are living doubled up or are in the homeless system. In the richest country in the world, in probably one of the richest cities in the world, by any measure, it's an outrage and it's unacceptable that we allow people to live on our streets. I was just on the subway a couple of times today, going back and forth from several meetings, and I've also started to notice homeless people sleeping on the subway, and we hadn't seen that in a while. We need to make a commitment to ensure, one, that we provide the mental health services for people who need mental health. You know, we went through a period where we had folks with mental health issues institutionalized in the state of New York, but when we decided to deinstitutionalize them, we kind of like left them hanging in limbo and didn't really have a plan for where they would go. We've also surrendered the space of mental health as part of the health care issue, and we need to ensure that we address that issue among our young people. We have an opportunity to address this issue by increasing the generation of units of housing that we provide. We have an affordable housing crisis in New York City. Many people ultimately become homeless because they just cannot afford the unbelievable rent prices. They're essentially pushed out of neighborhoods. So as mayor, I would have a very aggressive policy toward housing production. When I was borough president, we produced in 7.5 years 40,000 units of affordable housing in the Bronx. Many of them for poor and working class families. You go to the South Bronx now, it is not the South Bronx of 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. In 1977, Howard Cosell, I'll close with this, turns to, it was an October night, the World Series was being played, and he turns and he says to the world, the Bronx is burning. And landlords were literally torching their buildings, and they were hiring thugs to torch their buildings, collect on the insurance, and leave the city. And the city became that kind of city. It was thought to be ungovernable. We know better. We know we can do better. We know that we have a moral obligation to ensure that everybody who needs a housing unit has a housing unit. We need to ensure that it's affordable. I bring a wealth of experience in terms of housing production, and that's what I will bring as mayor of New York City to this question of housing for the homeless.
I'm not sure these kids remember Howard Cosell. Howard was a sportscaster for Monday Night Football and a great progressive. Great man. He also was a guy who said that the worst moment in American history, the most ignominious moment, was the killing of the 4 students at Kent State, 1971. This was Howard Cosell. So, get worked up. I would say on homeless, we have a way to deal with it, right? I've told you my economic plan, which is to tax Wall Street. They're getting off scot-free. They have record profits, 0.5% transaction tax, taxing the real estate buildings here, a graduated real estate tax for luxury apartments in this city. You know that the Barclays Center, they don't pay any taxes. There are a lot of, the Yankees do not pay any taxes. They're supposed to build affordable housing. What we need to do is immediately build homeless, really nice home, not shelters, let's say like the Y or something like that, but let's like bring them into affordable housing. No one should be homeless in this city. There's enough money to go around. 1% of the population controls 50% of the wealth. This is like Paris in 1789. And if you had a redistribution of the wealth, we could put everyone to work and everyone a place to sleep. And this would be a much better city. I mean, it's the most patriotic thing to do, isn't it? Is to help one another. Instead of building jails, we're spending $50,000 a year to put people in jail. Let's put them in college. Let's find them a home. We can do it. A massive FDR-style reinvigoration of the system in New York City for everybody.
Well, I just want to say thank you very, very much for this opportunity. I think it gives me great inspiration and hope that the young people are interested, are active, are organizing this kind of conversation. You know, I think Brooke mentioned it. It sounds like an overused phrase, but you are our future. And the work that we do in this generation of adult leaders is really a handoff to your generation. We need the full participation of the young people if we're going to begin to address the serious issues that we face with a system that is undereducating our kids, an unaffordable city, a city that's not preparing itself properly for a global economy. We're not making the important investments, and I know you concern yourselves with information exchange and broadband. If we're going to compete with Silicon Valley, with Raleigh-Durham, with Boston, if there's going to be jobs for you that are competitive, that allow you to contribute greatly to society, which I am confident that certainly this group of young people will, we must do better. And so I'm running for mayor, as I said, because I believe we can do better. And it terrifies me that in this year, 2013, only 3 in 10 voters are likely to come out and decide who the next mayor of New York City is. We need to wake up the sleeping giant. Visit Carrion 2013, look at my ideas, follow me on Twitter at Adolfo Carrion. We need to open up this conversation. It shouldn't be just the special interests. It shouldn't be the lobbyists. It should be all of New York participating in the important decision of selecting who our next leader is. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Look, I believe that I know I am the most progressive candidate that this city has had in at least 50 years. I really am. Just take a look at my record. You've never had a person run for this office that has spent 5 or 6 times in jail with Occupy Wall Street and with Against Stop and Frisk running. I'm the only one. You need me to be in this race. Everyone here needs me because we have a lot in common. I had a father that did 10 years in prison before I was born. We all became alcoholics, all 4 of the kids. So I identify with people who are victims of the criminal justice system. And I am here to get my father's voice out there and make a change. I'm here because the other candidates, with the exception of this gentleman here, is a very progressive man from the Bronx, and I admire his work. But the Democrats that are running are not that progressive. Take a look at where they get their money and take a look at their past. I stand up to clean the Democratic Party up. It is now the party of the war in Iraq. It is now the party of the Afghan surge. It's now the party of the NDAA, the Patriot Act, the death penalty, drone strikes. None of them will speak out against these monstrosities that are going on, and they're being engineered by the Democratic Party right now. You can't blame the Republican Party. It's the Democratic Party that's in charge right now, and they are doing this. And the noose is getting tighter. The noose is getting tighter on poor people right now. You're going to have to stand up, be activists like those children in Argentina. They stood up against the military government, and then their parents took over. You've got to, the only way to do this, it's not really through voting. That's not the way to do it. You have to get the asses of the masses onto the streets and demonstrate. You have to be out there. And then make sure you're out there. Get a hold of my campaign, Credico2013.org. See the documentary on me by Jack Black, the actor. There's a full-length documentary at my website about my activism. And let me just say, help me get on the ballot. Go out there, organize. I am with you, because I went to a community college in California. All right? So I'm with you. Thank you very much.
Sorry, so 2 seconds before everyone leaves, and I think there's a closing as well, and the candidates have to go. I'm Scott Warren, I'm from Generation Citizen. First wanted to say thank you, especially to Mr. Carr and Mr. Credico for actually staying through. So really appreciate you guys being here, and really appreciate the good work that the Resilience Advocacy Project is doing. Just the 2 messages I wanted to leave you with, and Mr. Carrion's talked about this a little bit. We had 30% of eligible New Yorkers that voted in the last 2009 election. When you look at 18 to 30-year-olds, so most of the demographics that are represented here in this room, that was 4%. So 4% of 18 to 30-year-olds voted in the 2009 mayoral election, Mayor Bloomberg only won by 5 points. So it was a competitive election. If we want these politicians to take us seriously, to come to forums like this, to stay at forums like this, we need to show up and vote. And if you're not 18, if you are 18, it's not enough just to vote. It's getting your brothers, it's getting your sisters, it's getting your classmates, it's getting your parents to vote. And that's the only way that these candidates are going to care about young people. The second thing is that you guys have to look up the candidates and look up the issues and make sure that everybody's doing it. It's a really important election. Completely agree that we need more than 30% of the electorate. But we need to do our research and we need to understand those issues. So thanks so much for coming today. We have one last closing speaker, and thanks so much to the candidates.
Excuse me. Hi, my name is Amy. I'm 14. I am a freshman at Town Limited. I'm not sure if all of you are aware, but there is an issue about the high school process. It is a very hard process, and some 8th graders have been assigned to schools that are known as admission by audition schools, such as my own, yet they have not done so, and it's unfair to them, it's unfair to us, and I wanted to ask the candidates that if they were elected mayor, that will they please reinstate the school's admission by audition policy, and what will they do to prevent things like this from happening in the future? I have actually had a couple.
I'm actually going to put you on my staff. How is that? Huh? I want your number, and you're going to help me with this.
Carry on just left, but I had a copy.
Would you be a volunteer for my campaign?
I don't know.
I'll be the only one that will be talking about this, so you may as well do it.
Petition done by my mom, Lynn, who's in the audience, and the PTA, and it's basically like we're fighting against this because art schools are a very precious thing. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that, but that was not the closing statement. I actually took initiative to do that. But this is the closing statement.
This is Bill de Blasio. He just showed up. I'm kidding.
Okay, so young ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry that most of the candidates didn't stay, but thank you, Credico. Am I correct?
Credico. Everyone get one of these. I'm having a free comedy show with the creator of, what's the name of the show? The Daily Show. This Saturday. Free to anyone that wants to come in. There's 25 comedians. And I want you to MC it, all right?
Okay, you have heard almost all the candidates speak about the topics that are central to who we are as youth. And they have shared with you their plans to help address the issues that directly affect us, from education to stop and frisk. And regardless if you're able to vote or not, I know that hopefully the crowd will take responsibility for the city they live in, our city, New York. And our job now is to tell the adults about what we heard today. You can talk to your peers who are able to vote about the issues that you heard. Let them know your opinions and tell them who you think the best candidate is and why. Let this debate be a start to creating your own initiative about the issues that surround you. And if you're turning 18 by the end of the year, you can go to the back. We have students that are gonna help you fill out the forms. And so I guarantee that if you do that and you stay involved in your communities, that you will make a difference. I thank you all for being here, and we made history, so.